G'day, we're back for another Enduro bike review. This time we've got the YT Capra in for testing. It's their uncaged mixed-wheeled version with 170 mils of front and rear travel. This one is not necessarily an Enduro race bike, but more the kind of bike that likes to punch out party laps with mates. We've been having a great time on the Capra, so hang around to find out a little bit more, or head over to flowmountainbike.com for our full review.
Should have this bike in the lounge room more often. Looks good.
The YT Capra Uncaged is their mixed-wheeled version of their ever-popular Enduro bike. It comes in at $10,999, and with that you get a bike that packs a punch with its design, geo and spec. We've got a beautiful carbon frame, carbon wheels, Ohlins suspension, an electronic drivetrain from SRAM. The weight for the mixed-wheeled Capra that we have is 16.1 kilograms, and as usual that is without pedals and set up tubeless. For testing, we had a size large out here at Flow, and for reference, I was the one who predominantly rode this one at 179 centimeters tall. I found the sizing to fit me well, potentially on the smaller side for most larges in other brands, but as this is quite a playful bike, it suited the style of riding appropriately. Taking a quick look at the specific geo numbers, we have a reach at 464 millimeters, a 64-degree head angle, a 433 millimeter chainstay, and a 77.4-degree seat tube angle. In terms of geo numbers, these are quite conservative compared to some other modern enduro bikes out there. As a result, you get quite a centered feel on the bike, as it's not too long at either end. This definitely contributes to quite a playful ride and not necessarily the planted ground-hugging feel that you normally get from 170mm enduro bikes. It's worth noting that to achieve the mixed wheel configuration, they designed a specific rear end with this model, which is something we're pleased to see as it shows they've optimized the geo and suspension kinematics to suit. Let's take a quick look at how this bike climbs. For a bike that is very much focused on descending performance, it climbs quite well. It has a steep seat angle at 77.4 degrees, as well as a fairly short front end. This means you don't feel too stretched out when the seated climbing position, and it also means you can get a lot of weight onto the front wheel when needed without too much effort. Compared to the 29er version of this bike, as you might expect, it does carry a little less momentum with the smaller rear wheel, and at times on flatter, more technical terrain, you may notice the bike getting a little more hung up. However, on fire road climbs or smooth single track, the bike climbs with ease. There is a little bit of pedal bob, so we did use the climb switch regularly, and that works well on the Ohlins shock. It's not a complete lockout, so you do still get some traction from the rear end when needed, which is always nice. Okay, now for the fun bit. How does this bike go on the downhills? So on paper, you'll see that it's a 170mm enduro bike, but we found that it has some characteristics that provide quite a unique experience compared to other bikes in this category. We've reviewed the Specialized Status previously, which we referred to as a fun Duro bike, and we would describe the mixed-wheeled Capra in a similar vein. It's not your typical race bike as it has a much more playful and lively feel. The relatively short geo and smaller rear wheel would be the main contributing factors to this, as well as a head angle of 64 degrees, which is slack but not super slack, meaning the handling is quite agile. This bike is really fun in turns. We found it easy to throw around, and it has quite an effortless feel when moving the bike laterally, going from edge to edge on the tyres. A lot of people talk about mixed-wheeled bikes having more clearance on a vertical plane in regards to tyre buzz, but we found the more impactful characteristic of the smaller rear wheel is the ability and the clearance to move the bike side to side. This is great when cornering, but also pleasing when the trail gets steep and technical. It makes it much easier to get the bike in the right position underneath you. With the bike and its energetic feel, it still performs quite well on flatter terrain. Often big enduro bikes can struggle in these scenarios, but the mixed-wheeled Capra has plenty of pop and is able to pick up over obstacles with ease. We'd be tempted to try an air shock on this bike to enhance that characteristic even a little bit more. This version of the Capra loves jumps. We can see bike park enthusiasts being drawn towards this one. It's got a lot of travel, but still has plenty of pop and predictability on steeper lips. Personally, I wouldn't say I'm great on jumps or a stylish rider by any means, but this bike gave me a lot of confidence to hit some kickers that maybe I wouldn't always. We've mentioned the playfulness of the bike a lot, and with that though does come some slightly less stable characteristics, particularly at higher speeds and when it gets rough. The bike can be a little bit twitchy in these scenarios, however, there is plenty of travel to soak up the rough stuff. It would only be a problem if you're looking for something that is race orientated and has the ability to plough through rough sections of trail. Rode this bike quite a lot in New Zealand, and particularly in Queenstown, had a lot of fun on trails like Rude Rock, which you might know, which is a super fast and flowy trail with lots of really fun corners. A bike like this thrives in that kind of scenario. It's fair to say that the spec on this bike was quite the talking point out on the trails. Many people commented on the matching colourway of the frame and the Ohlins suspension, and not only does it look good, the Ohlins suspension was a real highlight of the bike. The fork took a while to set up as it's a little different to some of the more common brands out there. The Ohlins RXF38 has 2 air chambers that you can adjust, the main chamber as well as a ramp-up chamber. We found this took some trial and error to get the balance right between the two, and we had to add about 10 to 15 PSI to the ramp-up chamber to get the support where we wanted it, particularly when we were getting further into the travel. Set up aside, the fork felt really good. The balance between smoothness off the top and support deeper in the travel was great. We didn't feel like we were getting lost in the travel at any point, which is always a bonus with longer travel forks. The Ohlins TTX 22 rear shock also performed well, but we didn't love it as much as the fork. Like the fork, it's smooth and supple through its travel. However, we found the rebound tune to be difficult to get right. There is some top out when you're running faster rebound settings, so we probably ran it 1 or 2 clicks slower than we would have liked to avoid this. With the characteristics of this bike and its kinematics, we'd be curious to try an air shock to further enhance its playfulness. This is something we think would be worth experimenting with. Another highlight were the wheels. You've got carbon Crankbrothers synthesis wheels and Maxxis tyres on this one. The rims have specific front and rear stiffnesses, which is cool to see. It means the front isn't as stiff as the rear in the aim to provide a less harsh feel through the hands, as well as better tracking with the ground. We also love to see a thicker casing on the rear tyre, and in this case it's in the form of Maxxis's double down casing. This is then paired with a front tyre with their softer Max Grip compound, and this is a combination we believe all enduro bikes should come stock with. It makes sense, right? A sticky front tyre and a durable rear tyre. We always love to see that combination. The GX electronic transmission drivetrain performs smoothly throughout the test. This is then paired with the wireless dropper post, also from SRAM, meaning that the cockpit with its lack of cables was extremely quiet and pleasing on the eye. On our last ride before filming this video, we lost all pressure in the dropper post. We'll reach out to SRAM to find out exactly what has happened, and we'll keep you updated. One other thing to note were the brakes. This one comes with SRAM's older RSC brakes, a great brake with a lot of power and adjustment. There were no issues with performance here, so don't let the fact that they're not the most recent deter you. These are a tried and true piece of kit. We're pleased to see a powerful brake on a bike like this. Again, it's an appropriate choice for the type of riding this bike will be drawn to. So at the end of the day, who is this bike for? Now, we see this bike catering to someone who likes to ride hard, but not necessarily race. Maybe someone who rides a lot of jumps, frequents bike parks regularly, or shuttles quite a lot. If you're keen to hear more about what we thought of this bike, head over to flowmountainbike.com for the full in-depth review, and we hope to see you out on the trails soon.